Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. We will try to keep it short. We've planned around 30 minutes to start for, and so that everyone can enjoy their lunch in the sun this afternoon. The deadline of the 25th of May is marked in everyone's agenda and will probably not be reached by everyone. So that's why we're here to help you achieving this. GDPR and how digital tools like eSignatures can help your company be compliant is the webinar you are now following. We will not do a typical GDPR theoretical webinar. Our goal is really to show you a tool that can ease up and simplify your life and help you take the necessary measurements to become compliant to GDPR. We're here to help you. First of all, we will start with a nice example of what GDPR now actually implies. One of the main aspects in the regulation of GDPR is to get consent. This disclaimer of this webinar states the purpose of our meeting, and the idea is that we give consent before we kick off our webinar as an example. So giving consent basically means in this example to check the box, and are we sure we want to start this? Yes, we are. So let's go and get right through it. Some few practicalities. As explained, it will be a short webinar of 30 minutes. We will try to keep as consent as possible to answer in the end some of your questions. If for timing reasons your questions won't be answered in time, we will pick up all of the questions you leave in the chat, and we will pick them up later on and share them via email like the slides we show you today. You can always contact us also via email with some questions related to the webinar. As explained, the slides and the recordings will be shared afterwards, so you can have a look later on. We've decided that we mute everyone so that everyone has a smooth digital experience as possible. So that's why you won't be able to talk us through. But of course, as explained, there is a chat window available for you, and we will pick up your questions and concerns through there. Who are we? My name is Sebastian Rousseau from Connective. I'm a project manager following up a lot of customer projects here. Explaining this, we also left our credentials below. If you want to get in touch, don't hesitate to send me an email or connect via LinkedIn through the QR code you can scan. I've also invited Anneleen from Ligier, who is sitting next to me, to talk you through the basics of GDPR, and will also answer all of your questions with regards to GDPR for this webinar. There's a quick summary of the things we will be discussing today, like you already saw on our website. So first, Anneleen will give a basic overview on GDPR and what it applies to your company. Then I will take over again and show you what we as a company at Connective did to become GDPR compliant. Afterwards, we will show our Connective eSignatures tool that can help you getting GDPR compliant with a short demo in the end. And afterwards, if there is still time, we can answer some of your questions as explained. If not possible today, we will for sure get back to you through email together with the slides. We start off with a small intro on what is Connective. Connective is a European key player in digital transaction management. There's a lot in a word, but basically what does it mean? More and more businesses and companies are moving their services to the digital world for easy and accurate follow-up. However, doing that kind of business online, you need to know for sure who you are dealing with. Digital identification, such as Connective's first product, the Identification Services Hub, is basically a central hub to digitally identify and verify the existence of any of your users by using a uniquely wide range of identification methods, like, for example, your Belgian eID, or It's Me in Belgium, or IDIN in Netherlands, or we have different other possibilities in other companies. Second part of driving digital business is the representing of your content digitally. Smart documents can consist of digitally generated documents based on identification data and/or data coming from your financial systems, such as Unit4, Exact, or any other of your systems internally. And third, but not least, one of the most key elements in digital strategy is for sure the ability to collect signatures digitally. With eSignatures, both you and your customers can easily sign documents digitally in an eIDAS compliant way. As a quick example, we see a lot of banks digitalizing their onboarding of a new customer, where we see the three products coming back. Basically reading out the personal data, adding, for example, an email address, a mobile phone, setting up the contract fully automatically, and in the end being signed by the customer and by you, so that the customer is onboarded directly and doesn't need to come through the office, print out, scan documents, and so on. Another example is a new employee in a company. Same there, we collect data, we set up a contract, and everything is signed and stored digitally in an efficient and easy way. We can be proud of our 150 satisfied customers and our more than 15 million digital signatures a year. And I'm now giving the floor to Anneleen to kick off with our GDPR.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leen van der Elstraat speaking. Thank you, Sebastian, for giving me this opportunity to elaborate about GDPR. As you can see on the slide, we are a very traditional law firm based in Antwerp, but we do have expertise in everything that's about technology, not only from the technology part, but also from the corporate side. And based upon this expertise, we elaborated more on the GDPR. We're happy to give you some minor insights. We will try not to be too theoretical, but give you just an overview on what GDPR is, because that's important to know for this presentation. We detect from our expertise three kinds of people in the market. The first one, they are like, oh, GDPR, what? What do you mean about it? Others start panicking, but actually better is to take it as an opportunity and to go for it. GDPR literally means the General Data Protection Regulation that was issued by the European authorities. Why has it been issued? It is because the European authorities believe that the protection of personal data, customer and employees, it's one of the key topics in our online world. Everybody knows the example of Facebook. Everybody knows about companies who are using personal data for commercial purposes. Based upon this evolution of the market, the European regulator wanted to interview and to put some boundaries to it. It's very important to note that we're talking about a regulation, which means that the regulation has direct impact in each and any European country as of the 25th of May. So there will not be, in the first instance, major differences between different European countries. Three key facts about GDPR. If we speak about data breach, then within 72 hours you need to report it to the competent authorities. The reason why now everybody is speaking about GDPR is not because of the differences as of the 25th of May, because there are differences with the past privacy legislation. However, given the fact that our Belgian legislation was already rather stringent, the differences are not major, but the key difference is the sanctions. Everybody here is talking about the Privacy Commission, but before there was no sanction mechanism, whereas now we see a percentage of your global turnover at risk up to 20 million. And the last key fact we wanted to share with you is whenever there's a question coming in from a data subject, you have 1 month, which can be extended to 3 months, but in principle you have 1 month to respond to this question. Now, there are different key roles within GDPR. The first one is everybody speaks about GDPR, but what does it mean? So the first definition you should understand is personal data. What does it mean, personal data? Personal data means a name of somebody, an address, but also an IPR address. It also means the date of birth. Each and any data that enables you to identify a person is considered as personal data. The personal data always belongs to a data subject. In our example, it is the data subject is called Olivia, and she wants to become client of an accounting firm. In our example, then the data controller will be the accounting firm, and she will share her name, her personal data, in order to be onboarded with the accounting firm, the data controller. The data controller itself will use a data processor in order to store the personal data of Olivia. In order to do so, the data processor will store the personal data, and for example, it can be the software company selling a CRM system to the accounting firm. But again, the data processor, the software firm, might use, for example, in our example, Microsoft Azure to host the CRM system. So the personal data of Olivia will have an entire flow down through this system. And what will change with GDPR? The change is that GDPR asks now to have a processor agreement in order to regulate the flow down of data. So the data controller, in our example, the accounting firm, will need to make sure to have a processor agreement in place with the data processor, the software firm. And in case the software firm is using a sub-processor, again, there will need to be a sub-processor agreement in place. All of this, of course, brings up an entire new field of formalities and agreements to be signed because of this obligation of having this processor agreement. If we see this on this one slide, it looks very easy and very simple, but taking it back to your own company, it might cause some extra formalities to comply to.
Thanks a lot, Annalene, for joining today, and thanks a lot for the interesting talk about the insights and ins and outs of GDPR. Now, why is GDPR a business opportunity? Well, actually, GDPR is an extension of the ability to manage the use of data. One of the key aims is implementing this regulation is really to create a playing field between the public and the private sectors to enable data exchange. So data transparency is one of the key words I want to give you today. As explained by Annalene, there are three main actors: the data controller, the data processor, and the data subject. This actually doesn't mean that you can only act as one. For example, we are as Connective a data controller for our own data, for example, employee data, financial data, and so on. But we're also a data processor for our customers because we process their data. So what did we do to get along and to comply with our GDPR regulation? Actually, we started off with the data processing agreements with all of our sub-processor partners and clients. This will also be part of the demo I'm going to show you in a few minutes, where we really show you how easy it is to use the eSignatures solution for this. We've also updated, together with our partner Ligier, our privacy statements and mapped all of our data flows throughout the firm, being marketing, communication, sales, and so on. Security-wise, we can assure you that all of our documents that are stored in the cloud are following the specific security measurements that are there. We've done a lot of workshops together with Microsoft to assure you this. Each year, we also have multiple external penetration tests and act accordingly to reassure that our software is as high-end as possible, and we are following state-of-the-art security measurements. Organizational, we've implemented new internal HR policies and procedures concerning data protection to reassure that all of our employees follow the necessary data regulations. We are also in the process of getting certified ISO 27000 and ETSI by the end of the year, so we're taking all the necessary actions there. You're also in full control of all of your data in the system. We can store all of your contracts that are signed in our system, but if you would like to delete them in any moment in time, they will directly be removed from our Azure storage. So it's really up to you, and you can be as flexible as you want with the data that is being processed by us. We're also creating internal awareness like flyers, webinars like today, and trainings, and so on. GDPR clearly clarifies strict requirements for obtaining consent to process and use individuals' data. Consent must be given specific, informed, unambitious, freely given, and documented. Well, our connective eSignature provides a secure, auditable, and easy-to-use solution for compliance with these GDPR consent requirements via multiple signing methods. There's no question about the integrity of the consent, the explicitity, and it's completely unambiguous. As showed on one of the first slides, we check the box in the disclaimer, which is clearly a good example of consent. But this is not always enough. We have one of our customers, Ramsey, is a good example of this. It's the company that clearly states that all medical data provided and shared throughout the hospitals need a clear consent. That's why a tick in the box isn't enough. That's why they are using our eSignature software to sign all of their consents in an easy way.
Maybe to complete, Sebastian, on that one, it's very important for each and any company to make sure and to get an overview on what data you're processing, because there's a different set of regulations that is applicable whenever you process specific or special data, and the procedures are different for that one. For example, medical data are covered by this regulation, but also ethical data, etc. So that was just a side note from my end.
Yes, thank you, Annalene, for giving your light on this. Then I continue with the data processor agreements, where we also talked about. So data processor agreements are mandatory to be created between the data controller and the data processor, basically being your customers. In an easy and fast way, eSignatures can provide you this throughout sending personalized emails, easily follow up through the signing overview portal. There's also the possibility to improve this by automatically archiving all of your documents and sending out reminders. We actually did it ourselves. To finish off this webinar, we're really quickly going through all the different steps of our e-signatures, and we are going to take the example of this data processor agreement, which I just talked about. So, we are, as a data controller and a social secretary, both mandatory to sign this data processor agreement. So we are, as Connective, the data controller, and the social secretary is the data processor here. So me, Sebastian, is responsible to arrange this agreement between the two persons responsible for signing this data processor agreement. For Connective, it's going to be Tine that will need to sign, and it's going to be Steven that will sign for the counterpart, for the social secretary as a data processor. We've chosen that both signers can choose between 3 different signing methods, being SMS OTP, being SMS one-time password, an email OTP, or via their Belgium ID. We also have a lot of other options, like, for example, the It's Me signing method, the lawyer card, biometric signing, and so on. Next step would be to send out the email that is being received by both Tine and Steven, that they can sign this data processor agreement. I also want to point out that we have the possibility that when you're in the same room, you can directly sign the document face to face, that you don't need to go through your inbox and just send and sign document directly on the spot, which is as easy as that. When you get the when you click on the URL that is in the email you receive, you will see that you are able to sign the document directly here and there. All persons and signers can easily reject the document if requested by this reject button, and select the reason why they want to reject this specific document. All signers need to run through and scroll down the whole document, and they need to declare that they've read all documents that need to be signed. Only then all signers can start signing. So we really assure you there that every signer read the whole document. And we start signing. First step is to select which signing method is the most applicable for the person. So as explained, we let the signer choose which one is the best one for him or her. So Steven wants to sign through SMS. He will select SMS and will need to fill in the 4 last digits of his phone number. Next, he will receive the 6 digits through his cell phone via SMS and will enter it. And that's it, as simple as that. The document is signed by Steven. Same process for the preferred signing method by Tine, and both will receive an email that they both signed the document. As you open your email again, you will get a link to download this PDF file, and you will clearly see when both signers signed and with which signing method. So you can clearly see the audit trail on your screen now on which cell phone was used, when it was signed, with which SMS code, so you can really trace it back whenever you need to go to court. Let's hope we will never get there. As explained, there's also an easy follow-up in our document portal, so everyone has his own personal space where he or she can see what the status is of all the different data processor agreements. So you can see how many persons signed the data processor agreements. Maybe some people rejected the processor agreements. You can always revoke the data processor agreement. There's also the ability to send automatic reminders. You can set an expiration date saying you need to sign before the 25th of May, otherwise we will take measurements, and so on and so on. All of these steps that you've seen here can also be automatically implemented through our API without the web portal. We see a lot of customers having more than 500 customers that all need to sign this data processor agreement, and that's why we developed our API, which you can really automatically import all of your CRM data and send out all of the emails automatically based on the imported data, which is client specific. Easy as that. So as explained, we also did it ourselves, and we can reassure you it's really easy to follow up all of the different customers, partners that need to sign this data processor agreement. Okido. I'm now checking the chat to see if we received some questions.
I see we have a very interesting first question. Somebody asking what the minimal requirements are in respect of GDPR. As I said before, the Belgian privacy legislation was already existing. So if we focus on what will change, I think the first one that will change is that each and any company, irrespective of the business, will have to make sure to have a processor register. Based upon this register, you get an insight of the data flows of your company, and then you can check where you need to comply to specific requirements. For example, whether you need data processing agreements in place, whether you need to update your privacy policy, whether your security procedures are still up to date. And two other new concepts under GDPR are privacy by design and privacy by default. And of course, everybody now speaks about the right to be forgotten, which is not new under privacy legislation. But again, because of the sanction mechanism, people will need to be compliant as of the 25th of May.
Okay, thank you, Annelien.
I see another question popping up. The question is, are full-time consultants considered as sub-processors? Yes, indeed, that's the case. Everybody knows that in Belgium there's the practice of having people working through their management company as full-time subcontractors, given the fact that they are, from a legal perspective, seen as subcontractors, as independent third parties. You have to make sure also to sign a sub-processor agreement with each and any freelancer working on a full-time basis for you.
Okay, I see we don't have any other questions coming in, so it seems to be a perfect timing. Thank you for the feedback, Philippe. Saying that it's a very interesting webinar. As explained, we will share all of the information, being the recordings and the slides. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to contact us. All of our information is also available on the slides. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the sun and have a good day.
And good luck with being compliant with GDPR.
Thank you.